All right, so you're cooler than they said. You promised not to make me look old and stupid.
I can help you on the old, I can't help you on the stupid. Hey there, your buddy Dave Temple here saying thank you for pushing play on this 217th episode of The Thriller Zone. Voted by you as your number one favorite thriller fiction podcast. So, out of the gate, thank you for that. Today, I have something pretty special for you. I'm sitting down remotely with one of the grand masters of crime, police procedural, and domestic thriller fiction. He's only one of the biggest names in the biz. In fact, he has worked alongside easily the biggest thriller author in the world today, James Patterson. This guy, my new best friend, has written more than a dozen number one New York Times bestsellers. Who is it? Marshall Karp. And he has a smash of a hit on his hands. In fact, as you'll hear shortly, this is one hell of a book. I won't go on about it now and instead let you stay for the juice. So, without teasing you any longer, let's you and I get into the Thriller Zone with Marshall Karp.
All right, already I want to hang with you, and you're in where, California?
I'm in San Diego.
Oh, well, I lived in LA for a couple years. Hollywood.
Marshall, I know something about you. And people hear me talk about this all the time. I'm always talking about having face-to-face conversations, and they're very hard to pull off because nobody ever wants to travel much these days. But I do a few shows out of Los Angeles, and I'll do the show in a studio we have rigged up there. And I spoke to your PR people, and I said, is there any way in the world I can get Marshall with a face-to-face? Can I sit down? Oh, no, you do know who you're talking about. He doesn't go anywhere for anyone. And I'm like, well, frick it.
Well,
so I knew I had this feeling. I'm like, if I could sit down with this cat, we would have so much fun because you can when you're breathing the same air, it's just, there's magic that nobody quite fully appreciates.
You're the best thing that happened to me today since Christian radio.
Praise the Lord.
Oh, Jesus. All right, behave.
Well, you do know that you don't know this because you don't know me, but I grew up as a PK. That's a preacher's kid. So I have seen it all, my friend. Yeah, listen, I got stories.
And it was Preacher Temple.
Yeah, Pastor Temple, sure. Yeah. Get that? You like that? Can't get any more religious than David Temple.
In Texas? In where?
Carolina. North Carolina.
My daughter's in Charlotte. I love it.
That's where I was, baby.
Well, it's the best. No, really, it is the best.
My family's there. How you doing? Look at this. Look at this bad boy. We're talking about don't tell me how to die. Hey, Marshall, don't you tell me how to die.
Don't you tell me what to tell you.
Don't you tell me what not to tell you about how to die or not to die.
This is going well so far, David.
Yeah. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Marshall Karp. I'm not going to go down all the accolades. Everybody does that. Marshall, I've written this many. Everybody knows you for crying out loud. I mean, you're a legend in your own mind. So here's the thing. Now, on your website, I love this description because this pulled me in. In high school, I was voted most likely to kill someone to get what she wants. 25 years later, I'm dying and there's something I have to do before I run out of time. All right, I want to decide where I insert my geek factor for the show. Can I geek out now or should I hold my geek for later?
Should I yell out nerd alert or should you just go for it?
I'm just going to go for it. All right. Well, first of all, there's 4 points I want to make, and then we're going to get into the book. But just a few things right off the top. Maggie's a force to be reckoned with. She's a 43-year-old woman who's gotten a terminal diagnosis, and she's embarking on a mission to find the perfect successor to her role as mother and wife. Number 2, I really, and I like people who use lots of reallys, really like your writing style. Number 3, it's easily, and if you knew me better, Marshall, you'd know this, easily one of the best books I have read. The show is in its 8th season. We're approaching 4 years in June. It is in the top 3 books I've read in that entire time of this podcast. No bullshit.
I don't smell any.
And number 4, P.S. I started reading this yesterday morning because I had been stacked and packed just trying to get ahead of things. I started reading. I went to the gym about 6 o'clock yesterday morning, came home for breakfast and started reading it over breakfast. I finished it in time for dinner as I went to prepare dinner for my wife because I'm that kind of husband. And I thought, wow, I turned to my wife, Tammy. You'd love her. I said, Tammy, when's the last time you saw me devour a book this fast? And she said, quote, never.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's the book. It's my 15th book. And David, I don't know how long it would take you to write a book, but it takes me about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I'm into the characters. I know. And I wrote a bunch of books for James Patterson, created the NYPD Red series, and I got really good at it. And I'm one of those old school guys who refuses to phone it in. I want my next book to be better than my last book. I'm proving something to my late father, who's been gone all these years, and I just want to. I want to do it right, and so writing another book in the same genre, the same vein as I've been writing, I did one of those, is this all there is? And I said, I want to go outside my comfort level. I want to do something. And not the book didn't come to me. The character came to me. She just popped into my head. And it was 7 years ago. It doesn't take 7 years. My first book took 5 years. This is my 15th. And it's because, first of all, spoiler alert, it's Maggie's the protagonist. She's the first person voice. And I did not grow up as a teenage girl. I didn't marry a successful, handsome doctor and birth 3 kids. I didn't come from a big Irish family that is like bonded like crazy glue. And yet I had to figure out how to capture her. And the more she told me her story, and by the way, it's what you read in the beginning. I was going, this is a great family drama, girl, but we do speak to our characters. Sometimes we just type for them and let them talk.
Sure.
But I go, I write thrillers. And that's when she said that line you read up front, that I happen to mention that in high school, I was voted most likely to kill someone to get what she wants. And I go, ooh, yeah. Now you have to figure it out. And you have to be true to the story. I mean, she's dying. We can't say at the last chapter, oh, wait, it was a lab mistake. No, she's on a journey. But how do you figure out an ending as a thriller writer that is going to blow your audience away? And let me tell you, pants down, you never saw it coming. Just tell them, snookered. And the biggest trick of all, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you thought, it's not really a thriller halfway through, right? You go, but I like Maggie. It's a family drama. What the?
Yeah.
That was you. Tammy called me. She told me all about it.
Yeah. Let me tell you a couple of things. First of all, that opening scene is its own world. You had me at the opening scene, which, if you don't have me at the opening scene, I'm promising you right now, I'm admitting something maybe I shouldn't. But if you don't grab me in the opening scene or the opening chapter, I'll give you the opening chapter because I'm that guy. I will not go on the ride with you. I got too much to do, Marshall. Too many things I'm coming back from prostate cancer. I'm on top of the world now. My health is back. But I learned a little, knock on that wood, baby, because I learned something. Tammy and I live by this philosophy now. If I only had this year to live, would you spend your time doing blank? And I'm not doing that on books, man. And I'm reading this first chapter. I'm like, she doesn't hold me. I don't know how much time I got. I might not read this. So to your point, too much melodrama there, but it's not really melodrama. It's reality. But I'm reading this. So I'm a couple of chapters in. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought it was going to be this at the beginning, and I'm just about to put my foot on the brake, and I'm going, well, I mean, the family drama is nice. Who doesn't like a little family drama? And then you throw a little hook in there, a little sideways sidewinder, and I go, wait, holy shit, I didn't see that coming. And then within minutes, I was so obsessed. I haven't been this obsessed with a book in a long time. Now, a lot of people who listen to the show going, Dave, you say a similar thing. And I'm like, no, this is all straight up. This is going to be a book that everybody is going to want to read because I have never read anything quite like it in the way. And I'm going to stop there because I'm just absorb that for just a moment, my buddy Marshall.
My buddy David, who, bro,
that is just smoking. All right, let's dive into it.
How do we get people to want to read it? I don't care if they get it from the library. I just want them to read it.
By the time we're done with this show, Marshall, every one of my listeners is going to either pre-order, order, post-order, or go to the library. One way or the other, they're going to pick up this book and they're going to read it. And and I'll tell you what, folks, if you pick it up and you read it and you don't like it, you send me a note. I'll give you your money back. I'm kidding.
I will paint your house. No, never mind.
Wait, that's...
Oh, shut up.
A couple things. Maggie's proactive approach to her impending death is both, I think I can say, unconventional, compelling. So I want to start off the show with a big old question. What inspired you to explore this narrative of a woman orchestrating her family's future after her demise, which that in of itself, she's a control freak. We picked that up pretty quickly. How did you come up with that? That's a mindset.
Well, like I said, I was trying to think of what I could do out of the box, and I wasn't thinking about it that moment, and she came into my head. And you said she's a control freak, and well, I mean, she's a woman, I'm a man, but we identified because, I mean, my wife's nickname for me is Mike, last name Row Manager. Okay. I am a firstborn, and if you've done any research, any reading about birth order, you know that we are driven to run the show. I'm Marshall, and I'm CEO of this family. Yeah. That kind of thing. Yeah. So it took me a while to figure out what she does for a living, but I knew she was in charge. And when I mean, she just told me flat out, and then I swear I went out and talked to 50 women, at least, and said, what would you do? And they all said the predictable, my family, go to Disney World, I like that someone said, well, I'd finally give my husband my passwords. But only one woman, and she swears I didn't mean to say that. Did I really say? She said, well, I'd go out and get an STD, give it to Michael, and let's see if the bastard gets laid after I'm gone. But I didn't want a character who would be like everybody else. And I had the feeling that people would root for her, that people would want to, and then it was just a process of figuring out how to get her. Like I said, 7 drafts. The first draft was, I thought I'd write 4 or 5 chapters of Maggie, growing up. How did she come to want this? Well, she came to want this because when she was a teenager, her mother died of the same disease. And then Mom said to the Maggie and her sister Lizzie, girls, they're going to come after your father. And she called him, she said, wait,
don't say it. I put a note here, one of my favorite lines in the whole book. It's got a note in yellow. When my mother died, I watched in horror as a parade of perfumed piranhas in pretty pink dresses flocked to my grieving father like stray cats to an overturned milk truck.
Now, a lot of kids don't know what a milk truck is. So one other passage I said hammerhead sharks on a feeding frenzy. But it's called Women with Casseroles. It's called the Brisket Brigade. It's called How Low Can That Cleavage Go at the Wake? But it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know it. And now a lot of them are well-intentioned.
Yeah.
But there are some people who will do it just for the ride, just for the cash and prizes. And that's what happened to her father. So once I knew that, it was like, okay, what happened? She couldn't handle it as a 17-year-old girl. I mean, she tried. When the casseroles came, and they did come, she and her sister okay, would put all the food in Tupperware and wash out the casserole dishes so these women could not come back 3 days later and say, "I forgot my dish." You know, so little by little by little, I did get into the head of how women think. So my first 5 chapters turned out to be 32 chapters of Maggie's life, and I loved writing it. But the book was chronological, and if you've ever seen a really good movie or a Netflix special or the Apple Hulu, it doesn't go chronological because, well, here, the timeline moves around, and I figured out a way to keep you involved in the timeline so it didn't have to say 10 years earlier, 5 years earlier. And and 7 drafts into it, and God, 100 women reading it for me saying, "Honey, girls don't think about sex that way." Not for nothing, but the first sex scene I had to write for Jim Patterson,
Uh-huh.
he goes, "I'm glad you made yourself happy with that scene, but Uh, but women aren't going to enjoy the guy spilling a beer on his lap and his girlfriend helping him dry it off." I go, "No." He go, "No, write a sex scene for a woman. Write for women." Jesus, Jim, you sound like my wife. But but I was doing an interview and I couldn't see it, but there was chat going on, and one woman in the chat said, one woman out of 150, whatever, and she goes, "Well, what right does a man have to write in a woman's voice? I mean, how can he be the protagonist?" And somebody wrote back to her, "Honey, a newsflash, Bram Stoker was not really a vampire." Yeah, we can do that. I mean, we can write. We can. One of the assignments I'll give writing students is like, Um, I want you to write a 500-word essay as told by first person, but don't make it a warm old, crusty grandfather or, a sweet waif on the street. Make it an inanimate object. Write
Yeah.
write the story of a paper clip. Write the story of an old hunting jacket, and, it's also, you said something before, I'll always ask the question, "So what's the purpose of the first chapter?" And they go, "Set the tone, get their, introduce the character." Finally, someone says, "The purpose of the first chapter is to get them to read the second chapter."
Exactly. I was going to say to turn the page. Yeah.
And I go, "Okay, it's easier question, guys. What's the purpose of the second chapter?" And if you keep them short, and I've always written what I call popcorn chapters. I want you to read 1,000 words, get to the button at the end, and damn it, I gotta just. I get all kinds of emails saying, "You son of a bitch." One guy told me he's listening on audio, and he started to drive the long way.
Yeah.
How it's as a writer, nothing makes you feel better than dicking around with your readers.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, there's a couple things I want to interject here so I can actually say a few words. One is one thing is,
wait, I just want to say, I was going to say before, I was going to apologize for speaking while you were interrupting, but go ahead.
well, I did. A couple thoughts did come through my mind. I'm like, well, how does this guy? Now, I'm not the guy who's going to say you have no right writing as a woman, because one of my last thrillers was a female detective in Hollywood. So, but I go, boy, the fact that he nailed a woman's voice and then 2 specific daughters' voices and then ancillary characters that are females, plus the mother who is a primary character. And they were all, listen, I grew up in a household with a mom and 2 sisters, so I got a very good idea how that world works. Number 1. Number 2, we're authors, we're creators. If we don't have the imagination to be able to do something like that, then we really should just go do something else, like maybe paint houses or wash windows. But anyway, I was surprised at just how emotional. This is the point I really want to get across. And I'm going to sound like a little bit of a wimp, but I don't really care because I got nothing to lose. I was surprised how emotional and how draining, and in a good way, by the way, this book ended up being. Matter of fact, I found myself getting so sentimental, especially at the beginning. And then when you get to a particular scene that involves a motorcycle and a whole lot of people, and that's all I'm going to say. That scene is so emotionally fraught with complexity and the nuance of the realization of finality of life. I was just like, man, Marshall is like one of my new heroes, because the way you pulled me in and really upset the emotional apple cart in me was that's not an easy feat, and I was transfixed. Talk amongst yourselves.
I found myself sobbing when I was writing it. I know you're talking about the motorcycle ride.
Yeah.
You're talking about chapter 9.
Yeah.
A lot of people at the publisher read it, and they were texting me as they were reading it. And one guy, Sean, is a video designer, he goes, chapter 9, you made a grown man cry. I go, it's all right. It's all right. It's like, it's the human experience. Why do people read books? I mean, yes, I love sci-fi as a kid, sci-fi, paranormal, but I want to be real people doing things that you don't expect. And by the way, tell them that there are a lot of laughs. There's dark humor, but that's what we do when you're a cop. Or, I mean, cancer patients can make you laugh. What is humor other than a violation of your expectations? Am I right?
Yeah.
You think, oh, she's going to, and then she cracks you up.
Great big old heart on chapter 9, because little notes to myself that I do throughout the book, and this book is full of them. I won't belabor it and bore people with it, but belabor away, David. Can we talk? All right, let's move on to something else. I love your. There's a couple things, folks, and I'm saying this not only to. I'm not blowing smoke up Marshall's skirt. It feels good, doesn't it? I'm just trying to say things that hit me viscerally, so that I can. I don't get anything. I'm selling books for you, but I don't get anything out of it. But I want people to know that there are certain things that trigger me. And that is part of my journey. And I know from people who write me, they write and say, Dave, the way that you interacted with fill in the blank, Marshall in this case, really made me, I had to go buy the book. So here's a couple things. Your play on words, your double entendres, your storyline switchbacks, I call them, the way you play with time. And it does not, it had me mesmerized, but the way you time jumped was confusing only for a fraction of a second, because once I understood your rhythm and the way you set up each chapter, I was like, wow, how did he do that? Because I was right there with you. You went over here to this decade back. I'm like, I'm right there with you. You jump forward. I'm right there with you. There's no confusion. Sometimes other writers can get a little confused, not calling any names out, but it was intriguing. And yet, it never held the story back with any kind of confusion. Instead, it kept me riveted, which is literally, and I said this to you out of the gate, I could not put it down. I found myself, I'm on the treadmill with it. I'm reading, I'm having lunch with it. I'm having breakfast with it. Matter of fact, my wife, we were going to watch a movie. I'm going to mention this. I probably won't say what I said at the end of the movie. It was a Oscar winner. I said, and I'm over there reading it. I'm cooking dinner and I'm reading it, and she's getting ready to sit down for the movie. And I'm like, honey, I'll be right there with you. I have to finish this book. She goes, no, go ahead. It's okay. Dinner can wait. And then I finally finish it. I'm like, oh, wow. And then we watched the movie, and it was the biggest disappointment I've had in a year of Sundays. And it won a huge award. I'm not going to say.
But you said at the beginning, you just went through a big health scare.
Yes. Yeah.
At the end of the book, not that you haven't already, but a lot of people have written this to me. Close the page Last page, closed the cover, walked away, and I couldn't stop thinking about my family, my mortality. What would I do? And that is that's the best thing an author could get. I sometimes will say, oh, I write the kind of stuff you read on an airplane, and then you get off the airplane and you give the flight attendant the book. But I wanted this book to stay with people, and
Yeah.
I think it does.
Mission accomplished. Yeah.
It stays with me, and I now have the biggest man crush ever. You are my guy. Tammy and I are going to have to talk. I mean, I'm almost ready to come to Los Angeles. I spent a couple of years out there in Hollywood, and you know what they say in Hollywood. Hello, he lied. Well, being from New York, an agent would call me and said, "So what did you think of my writers?" No, he's not right for this job. He goes, "I know, there's no openings." I said, "Oh no, there's an opening." I said, "But here's the problem. Now, if you tell him to do this with his, and they go, you like what he did, but you just want him to make it better." I go, "Yeah, he's good. He's got a lot of potential. He's young. Don't worry. Good client." He goes like, "This is very refreshing. You're very honest. Where are you from?" Oh, I said, "It's a little place called not Los Angeles."
Yeah, I did 3 tours of duty in that city. This is part of the reason I'm living in San Diego instead of the center of it all. But yeah, you never, and it's a real frustration. You never really know what people think. They're never going to tell you what they really think because you could have a job for them later or not, or so forth. Yeah.
I'm honest. I mean, I'm fair, but if you ask me my opinion, I'll do my best to help you.
I want to talk technique with this literary geek. I want to talk about getting your secret sauce to getting and keeping those pages turning. However, before you answer that, I want to take a short break for our sponsor. But when we come back, I'm going to ask that question. We're going to find out, folks. It's Marshall Karp. The book is Don't Tell Me How to Die. And it's Dave Temple on the Thriller Zone. Stay with us.
My husband, Alex, is a successful doctor. He's also drop-dead handsome. A lot of women wish they were me. In 3 months, they're going to get their chance. I'm dying. And when I'm gone, Alex will be single again. And those women will pounce on him, just like they went after my father when my mother died. But I'm not going to let that happen. Instead of one of them choosing him, I'm going to choose her.
The latest thriller from #1 New York Times best-selling author Marshall Karp. The story of a woman with nothing to lose.
Did I mention that in high school I was voted most likely to kill someone to get what she wants?
Don't Tell Me How to Die.
As we said before the break, I want to talk technique. And I know that you're going to probably, well, David, of course, it's just this or that. But I want you to be, I think we've bonded enough that you can be real with me, Marshall.
I'll try.
We got a mutual bromance over here.
I love your hair.
I love your hair. Or what's remaining of it. But anyway, here's the thing. Hey, wait a minute. Gloves are off. I want to talk about the secret because now, and here's what I'm getting at. It reminds me a little bit about James Patterson, and I know that's a compliment. You guys got some history together. You co-wrote with him on several books. It reminds me of his style. Yours is a little bit different, but I want to know, I got to break down. I'm always doing this. I'm a student. I'm like, how did Marshall get me to do that? And I'll go back. All right, hold on a second. All right. Oh, okay. Well, that's how he did it there. He's not going to do it again. I'm going to get him next time. And then, he did it again. So tell me that secret.
Well, I don't know if it's a secret, but one of the things I learned from Jim early on, he used to say, if my next door neighbor got shot and was lying in blood on his front lawn, I wouldn't describe the house. I don't give people the details that they don't need. And that was interesting. And he sends all his co-authors a list of 19 things to remember. And it's always, see the difference. There's a big difference between me and Jim, and he will tell you he is a storyteller. And tell the story. Don't indulge. And, when you get here, kick it up a notch, kick it up a notch, kick it up a notch. But the biggest difference is I invest heavily in characters. I don't know that Jim would have or could have written this book because it's not about character. It's what they call a slow burn. But I'm more of a craftsman in terms of the writing. And so, but what I learned from him is to make sure that you don't lose the reader. He's a champion of small chapters. My first book, The Rabbit Factory, had 115 chapters because it was my first book. It took a long time to start, but then once I got going, I couldn't stop. And that book was 140,000 words, which, as you know, is. But when the publisher published it, I said, David. His name was David. I said, God loved the art director. She put every chapter started on a right-hand page, which means that there are 50 blank left-hand pages. You want to save a couple of trees? He said, no. He said, I'd rather it was this fat. Because when someone reads a good book, they'll talk about it. But when someone reads a 632-page book, they won't shut up about it. And it's true. And I always put myself in the place of the reader and of the character. So there's a thing in front of my keyboard that says right now, what's going on in the hearts and minds of the character you're writing. Now, if, David got shot in chapter 20 and now I'm at chapter 27, chapter 20 was 3 weeks ago.
Right.
In my life. But in David's life, it was just half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I got to get back into what's going. I have to remember where he is. And so there's that. And it's not a secret sauce. It's just a style. It's sort of like you saying, how come you can be so good looking and talented at the same time? And I go, well, you left out humble and modest, but it's just, I said it before. I just don't phone it in. I just don't try to get the book out. I want to connect with you.
Yeah.
I read, I'll write it. I will read it out loud to see how it's. And by the way, if you have not listened, even sampled the audiobook, January Lavoie, who might be one of the best narrators out there and one of the biggest sweethearts ever. And she's got a fan club. She's got followers. If I tell your audiobook listeners, it's not only is it done by January Lavoie, but she gave life and breath and soul and everything to these characters. And what was terrific, we did a podcast together. She told me, she said, so I've done 700 books with the same engineer. She lives down in Atlanta. She's the same guy, and he is a man of few words. We do the book, and it's like, thank you very much. They talk, but he's a total professional. He's not a talker like, I don't know, you. And she said, 700 books. And when I finished those last 5 words, and Don't Tell Me How to Die, he keyed his mic and he goes, whoa, that was awesome. And I wound up talking to him. He said, yeah, I did say that. I don't know how I do it. I do it.
Yeah.
I do it because I try to do it. I do it because I want to do it. I do it because we all have a gift. I'm trying to figure out what the hell yours is, but oh, okay. No,
Oh my God.
no. You're Conan O'Brien. You're David Letterman. You're a guy who knows how to get the most out of people.
Well,
You suck up, you.
no, you know what it is? Here's a little inside secret. I did 25 years of major morning radio show. So I've been around a lot of people my whole life. I'm inquisitive. I'm not afraid to ask questions. I'm insatiably curious, and I got nothing to lose. So I'm like, I'm here to help you sell a book. I have become a rabid fan. I did catch myself going back at your website and looking at other books. I'm like, all right, now he's got me hooked. I'm got to go find some more books to read. And this is coming from a guy who reads about 2 books a week. Because like this week, I got 2 shows, so I'm reading 2 books. And you gotta really carve out the time. Now I'm gonna see if I can pull this off. Hang on a second.
1. 3 months before the funeral. At 6 feet 8, 360 pounds, Irv Hollingsworth was not only the biggest TV weatherman in Hartstone, New York, his larger-than-life personality and his flair for showmanship had made him the most popular in the county, which is why instead of reporting from a warm, dry studio that watershed June morning, Big Irv, dressed in bright yellow, waist-high waders and a matching XXXXL slicker, was broadcasting live from Magic Pond during a torrential downpour.
Well, she is talented. Just maybe you want to consider a different narrator on the next one, if you need a guy.
You do not suck. I tell you. By the way, that was kind of like that's been my gold standard for everything.
Don't suck. Suck less.
If I say this does not suck, that's a compliment, except when I bought a Dyson.
Right. I'm going to go back to Jim for a second. So your collaboration with him on the NYPD Red series, I'm trying to remember. I'm sure because I don't know if you knew this or not. I don't think you've watched the podcast, but Jim kicked off season 8 in January. He was my very first guest, and I don't think he does many podcasts. So I was a little bit wowed, and it was a lot of fun because he's a hero of mine. I mean, he really kind of he lit the fire underneath me to say, you can do this, kid. He didn't even know it. But I want to go back to that because that one focused on crime and investigation. This one is clearly a domestic thriller, which is, and I was looking up, I was researching, it was either on the Amazon page or it was inside the book. I think it was actually inside the book because it will tell you, fiction, thrillers, domestic thriller that they don't, a lot of people don't think it. So you think, oh, it's a domestic, really? However, it feels very specific versus you got crime and investigation and you got domestic thriller. Even though there is crime inside this domestic thriller, tell me how you feel, how you would describe to a listener the difference between that, if that matters to you.
Well, I mean, a thriller, you start with a big event. By the way, you don't have to buy my books now. I will send you the doorstop called the Rabbit Factory.
Okay.
But the book actually, well, I don't know when today, Snowstorm in August is on Kindle special, $1.99. That the idea for Snowstorm in August was, okay, first chapter, a helicopter with crop duster arms comes out and strafes New York City's Central Park with 4,000 pounds of cocaine. That's a thriller. You want to know who did it. You want to know why. You want to know what they're going to do next. And you want to know. And that's what a thriller is. And you kill somebody in the first chapter and you lull someone into, and then boom, somebody else gets killed. And Jim does a lot of Jim's stuff is over the top. He can think of these things. He can. Yeah, I mean, I heard him do a podcast with someone, and someone asked him, how do you do that? And he said, well, all right, suppose I wrote something about you, and in the middle of this podcast, someone comes in and murders your producer.
Right.
He said, "What are you going to do?" And the guy goes, he goes, "You're going to turn to chapter 2." But this was different. This was a different movie in my head. This was, and I said this before, I think. I don't know. Which podcast is this? No, it's like I couldn't spring all this. I had to get you to love Maggie, be caught up in her journey before I made everything change. So this was a totally different. I don't know. What's the difference between, a a sonnet, a piece of poetry, and a ransom note? It's all intention.
Sure.
And so I don't think I've helped you at all here. So you're on your own, sucker.
You have, and it's interesting because there's so many comments that I want to make, but I'm so careful not to give a dang thing away because of something you just said. And how do I say it? Well, whenever you can make me fall in love with a character and root for them, you got me. But then when you can make me root for them and they may be up to a little bit of no good, then you challenge my thinking of, the angel and the devil on the shoulders. So it makes me go, well, should I root for them? Because they're kind of bad, but there's some common sense to that. But then when the third level comes in, which I won't say, then you're like, wow, that's called conundrum.
It's called safe literature. When you look, your characters, if they're not flawed, what are they? I mean, yeah, women. I say women because women were attracted to this book, but trust me, men have been writing to me and saying, "Dude, this is not my kind of book." But yeah, well, hey, dude yourself. But I mean, they say Maggie's flawed. She did things that made me hate her, but it's like, make a list of people that are not flawed, and they're still, you like them for what you accept them.
Sure.
And that was what hey, also, you got to cut her some slack. She's got 3 months to live. She's desperate.
Yeah. And there is a little bit of, back to the psychology, there is, and you remember I mentioned to you early on how you pulled me in emotionally, and you had me on this real emotional roller coaster. And then, of course, as I'm driving to pick up my dog, I'm listening to love stories sung by Tim McGraw and some country. So I'm like, oh my God, I am just making this worse. But the funny thing about it is I want to drill down on some of the psychology. Now, Marshall, I'm going to tell you something. I make a litany of notes to myself so I never look like an idiot in case my brain just gives out. I'll write them in their entirety, but I bold certain things so that I make sure that I hit a point. But every once in a while, I'll come up and it's a little bit too floral. I'm about to do that to you right now. I'm going to read it just like I wrote it, but I want you to hear it in the way that you and I are just talking, which is casual. So here, I write this down. I want to drill down on psychology here. Maggie's determination stems from her mother's death and its aftermath. Can you talk about your approach as to the generational impact of loss on family dynamics? Now, that's way too fancy writing, but it makes me want to go, yeah, but you know what? There's generational impact. You got the mother, you got the daughter, you got the sister on those family dynamics. So if you can unpack that thing, how does it hit you?
I think it hits me. It's not quite a question I have heard because it's Maggie does not burden her 2 daughters when she says, I'm not. And by the way, I don't know if you choked up a little when Maggie tells us that Mom was sick, but she seemed like she was getting better. And we had this wonderful picnic at Magic Pond, just the way we did when we were kids.
Love that.
And then the 4 words, and I'm not going to do that. Since then, I have screamed in caves. I have, written in the steam on my shower, those 4 words that my mother said that I will never forget. How strong are you?
Yeah.
Well, you know, this is about we learn from life. My wife was pregnant, and we were ridiculously young. We went to Rome when she was 3 months pregnant. I, of course, said, "No, you help with the bags." We were in a hotel in Rome, and it was like around midnight, and she came out of the bathroom, and she stood backlit in nightgown, and I could see her, and she was just standing there, and she looked at me, and she said, "How strong are you?" She was 3 months pregnant. She just came from the bathroom, and very strong, I lied. Now, there's a happy ending to that story. It was, God, 19 something technology, and we called a doctor in New York who did this. And then we got this great doctor in Rome, and he gave her some kind of progesterone shot or whatever. And then we traveled, and we did it again in Greece and in Yugoslavia, wherever we went. But when Maggie's mother says that to her, she's not imposing. She's not dumping stuff. She's conveying values. I remember things that my grandfather said to me, that my father said to me, that my teachers said to me, that taught me about what's important in life. And we all have that. We can all go back to a moment in time where someone generationally, I mean, my grandmother was a riot. She made the best, she did make the best chicken soup. And I said, "You got to give me the recipe." And she goes, "Well, I grew up one of 7 sisters, farm girl in Fehérvármegye in Hungary, and it's a family recipe from the farm." She said, "All right, you're writing down?" I said, "I'm writing down." She said, "First, you steal a chicken." And she meant it. And she gave me a picture of what she was like when she was a little girl. And, my mother used to say, "We never did that when we were children." And my father goes, "Oh my God, let me tell you." Your mother's just left the room. What me and your two, what we did, we were doing this, and we were like setting firecrackers. You want to hear from your parents what you need to hear so you could be a better person. And so Maggie's drive, I think, is generational. Also, some of us have this, what I would call a defective rescue gene.
Yeah.
I think the shrinks called it codependent, but I think it's way more that, I'm sorry, David. What is your emergency? Because I'd like to make it more important than the rest of my life. And Maggie wants to fix things. She's a fixer. People, I want to make it better for you. How can you go on without me?
Right.
So I'll hang around after I'm dead, and I'll fix things.
Yeah.
And it's not a generational demand. Like, you better go to church, you better, wear clean underwear and all. It's just a lesson you learn. It's just a value you pick up, and you can't shake that value because it means something to you. We all have those values, and that's what Maggie. She not only means well. Look, I still do things that my father's gone a long time ago. "How am I doing, Dad?"
Yeah.
I want to do it because I know that's what makes my dead relatives feel proud of me.
Sure.
This should be not part of the, but this should be, like I always say, I say to my shrink says, "Well, just tell me." I said, "Well, I tell you everything." And he goes, "No, you don't." I said, "Yeah, this shit's private, man, but you've just hit a hot button.
Yeah.
So, I
Well, I got
know.
another hot button for you. I got another one for you. Well, it's not really a hot button, but I'm always thinking about psychological complexity because I'm just wired that way.
No, good.
Because it's about preparing for one's death. So that to me was such an interesting thing. My father was taken very quickly at a much too young of an age, younger than I am now, and I was way too young. And then my mother was taken passed a couple of years ago from a wicked ass cancer, and it had me doing this, because the mother's character is writing out letters to her daughters. And I love this. Here, when I'm gone, I want you to read this. And this is what I want to leave as a legacy. And think about this. So that just got my whole head spinning. My dad was always he's working 3 jobs and too busy, but he would send me on a rare occasion, and I still have them. And it's maybe this few on a yellow legal pad. He'd stop his day and write me a note. And I cherished every one, and I've read them hundreds of times, and they're very simple, but they mean the world to me. My mother, fortunately, I had several days, really beautiful, languorous days with her right before she passed, and she didn't need to write me letters. But just yesterday, as I was reflecting on this book, I thought, what would she have written to me knowing what was coming, and after she was gone? Son, I want you to think about these things. So I kind of tried to channel her and to hear those, and I didn't yesterday, but this is the takeaway. I'm babbling. This book was not only just good old flat out entertainment, Marshall, which it was, and we've done a lot of kidding around, and that's fun, and I love that. But man, for some reason, it just triggered something in my head. I can't say this about every book. Matter of fact, I can't say it about very many books. But the way it caused me to think deeper is what's affected me so much. So I hope that's the compliment, and I hope it means to you what I think it might.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you hit a major hot button in that my father had 3 blue-collar jobs. I mean, worked 2 at a time, worked around the clock, so that his kids would have a better life. And, he dropped out of high school, but he's still smart. He was a writer. You wouldn't know it, but he wrote me letters. More to me than my 2 younger brothers. And when I was in college, we didn't have a way to text our parents.
Right.
He would write to me because it was a stamp and it wasn't a phone call. I have those letters. I have them cherished. I have written 400 to 500 page journal to myself that sometimes I write to my kids, but then I've also told my friend to just burn everything when I'm dead. I have written a letter to myself every New Year's Eve since I was 16. So I can go back and hear. Of course, at 16, I ritualistically burned them. But then when I was 20, I wrote a letter. I was in college, and I still have that, and I could talk to that guy. That contact, that piece of me after I'm gone. In my first book, in The Rabbit Factory, when we meet Mike Lomax, a LAPD detective, he's only widowed for 6 months. And after I kill somebody, in the very early chapter, he opens a letter from his dead wife that he opens. She left him 9 letters while she was dying. She was dying of ovarian cancer. They had tried to get pregnant, and then it turns out she wasn't pregnant. She was dying. The first couple of chapters, you read that first letter, and the first letter that he's reading, which is maybe number 5 or number 6. And then throughout the book, she's in touch with him again. And what is it about that, to be able to be in touch with your past? It's like if you could go back one day in time and spend the day with that one person or that little group, who would it be? To me, it would invariably have nothing to do with the girlfriend that you never shook, but it would be about spending time with the people whose values I inherited.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I like to do that. And when I wrote the 5th book in the Lomax and Big series, I said, there's only 9 letters, and the reader's been exposed to them all. And my friend Danny, he said, well, what if she actually wrote some more and gave it to Mike's father to give to him at a certain point in his life, not while he was raw, but a couple of years later.
Yeah.
And being the old, smart, clever marketing guy that I am,
Yeah.
I of course put the first 6 or 7 chapters of book 2 in the, and then.
Yeah. Well, and to that same point, I did find myself yesterday thinking this weekend when I get some quiet time and I'm not, racing to the end to get all these podcasts done, I said, I'm going to start this diary just for myself that I'm going to set aside that I'll pass along because, we don't know how long we're going to be here. And there's just a few things I want to be able to say to some people that I'm like, huh? And I generally live in that space of, I'm going to tell you what I think right now because all I have is right now. And having lost both parents, grandparents, a lot of aunts and uncles, you realize how brief it all is. So you've challenged me to just do that. All right, folks,
By the way, for
Yeah.
me, the books, especially this books, that's a legacy.
Sure.
People will read this when I'm gone, and
Yeah.
I'll feel good. David, what do writers do? We're screwed up in the best possible way.
Yeah, you make shit up. I mean, that's what we do, right? Well, as we kind of start to wrap, there's a couple things, this is something I want to make sure I touched on because I'm a big fan of television and film and long form that is visual. And I know that you got a background in screenwriting and television. And I want to know how those experiences and those mediums have influenced your work as a novelist. That's one part of it. And I don't want to get too fractionalized, but so how is that world influenced this world? And what shifts have you seen in your very young years shift from when you were in the heart of it in Hollywood versus what it is today? Because I know there's been a little span of time. So let's start with the first one. How have those experiences how has television and screenwriting influenced your novel writing?
Well, the first draft of my first book, I basically wrote what the characters did and what the dialogue was, and my editor read the 50 pages and said, "Well, what are they wearing?" I said, "I don't know. The wardrobe lady will fix that." And they said, "Well, what is the neighborhood like?" "No, the location scout will do that." And what does he look like? "I don't know yet. He could be white. He could be black. He could be short." She goes, "You don't have those people to communicate. So when you're writing a book, you have to paint the picture without belaboring the picture. But also, when you are creating a scene and you have some budget to put the people outside, inside, in the set, you're allowed to do more than just 2 talking heads."
Right.
So I'll have 2 people talking, but where can I put them? That's kind of interesting. I mean, look, it's what I'm able to do, I think, cinematically. I also think I want somebody who makes movies to read this book and say, this should be a movie. You've probably already said that to yourself. This should be a movie. And so I write cinematically, and I feel, and then I pace myself like cinema. And I think for me, the difference between what I did back then is that there's just so much more latitude. My film, Just Looking, which I got the most amazing email last night on my pub day. I got the most amazing email from Jason Alexander, who directed it. It's like the 25th anniversary, and there is I shouldn't say this out loud because it's not chiseled in stone, but a film festival wants to use that movie as the anchor for their whole weekend-long festival. They want me, they want Jason, they want the producer, they want the 12-year-old kid who was the star to show up. The biggest thing I learned is that Everything's gotten that movie got an R rating for one word, starts with F, ends with uck. Okay? All right? What he should have said, 12-year-old kid, is like, I'm going to dedicate my summer vacation to trying. I'm tired of reading National Geographic. I want to see two people doing it.
Right.
If he had said doing it,
Yeah.
see, I could say F you.
Right.
And that's just profanity, and that's PG-13.
Right.
But if I said,
Yeah.
I would like to F you.
Right.
Oh, in 2000, that's a big no-no. Well,
Yeah.
as you can see, the world has changed, and people are more open. I don't think values change. I think Shakespeare wrote about young love, and people still write about young love. It's never the insides. I don't think our insides change. Our outsides change. If you stay inside the characters, you're always going to be who you are. And by the way, like everybody, I got better at what I do. I learned from Jim Patterson. I learned from reading books. I've learned from talking to you. Your insights. No smoke. You know how to make someone feel comfortable and forget that, am I really on a podcast?
I'm saving one last question that I end all my shows with. But before that, I want to say, what's next? Because I want to make sure that you are on this podcast when that next book drops.
It's NYPD Red 8.
Okay. 8.
And, when I took over the series, it was just called NYPD Red, then NYPD Red 2 and 3 and 4.
Sure.
But when I took over with...
Jim loves numbers, doesn't he?
Yeah. I made NYPD Red 7, the murder sorority. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then I am currently writing NYPD Red 8, the 1159 bomber. My log line in my head already is, it's 11:59, and the city that never sleeps is afraid to get out of bed.
Nicely done.
Look, it is due to hit the stores at November 25th. I have never been this close to deadline, but it's because I spend time with wonderful people like you promoting the hell out of Don't Tell Me How to Die. I guess everybody, me, the publisher, everybody's kind of overwhelmed by the reception for Don't Tell Me. They want to talk to me.
Dude, first of all, before we go, and may I call you your holy dudeness.
Please.
I think when you run across a book, and I want to talk, very seldom do we ever get to talk to people in a real way. And I'm going to do this. And if you don't like this little piece, I'll cut it out. But I want to ask you, what do you think about the publishing world today? This is like if you and I were sitting around having a favorite beverage or snack, and it was just you and me hanging out in that sexy room of yours. If I said, Marshall, be real with me. It's just you and me. What do you think of the business these days? A. B. Do you think this social media bullshit really matters? Does it help you move books? Do podcasts and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, does it really move books for you? And number 3, do you give a shit?
I made the mistake before of telling you that I am this brutally New York honest.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the publishing business is a business. And, in Jerry Maguire, it's not called show friends, Jerry.
Exactly.
It's called show business. And whatever heart there was when I got into it, I was partners with the publisher. They respond, publishers these days, I told you I wrote Don't Tell Me How to Die. The first draft was not for publication, but we sent it out to a couple of my agents, sent it to publishers, and we love Marshall, but no, this book is not for. They didn't see the value that this could be great. You just have to rewrite it a bunch of times. So I don't think there's anybody in the publishing business these days that will look at an unpolished gem and say, you've got potential. And that's a shame. And it's more and more of a business. The world is run by algorithms. I mean, thank God yesterday was pub day, because now I don't have to generate pre-orders, which to feed the algorithm gods. There's a part of my website where I encourage other writers, young writers, to just write. And I have said to them, there are a million, let's go with a-holes. There are a million people in the publishing business who can stop you from becoming a published author. There's only one person who can stop you from being a writer. Do not let the publishing business intimidate you, because these days you can self-publish, find your niche. Do you want to make money? You're in the wrong business. I've read things on Medium where they say, your book will never make money, and most people don't. And, after 4 successful books in the Lomax and Biggs series, I didn't sell quite enough. I had a cult following, or maybe just a few wackos short of a cult, but they kept writing to me for years. We want another Lomax and I wrote Terminal, the currently last book in the series, and self-published it. Using back then it was Amazon. They had something. Amazon had something called the White Glove Group for authors. And so the first question is, publishing is a business. This book, I have a collection of rejections. All authors have rejections. At one point, I was cursing them out, like, don't they see it? I'm crushed. But recently, I swear, I was thinking, God bless these publishers. God bless these people with no vision for killing my first draft, my 4th draft, my 5th draft, because they made it a better book. I rewrote certain parts. Don't think that they're going to love you. They're in the business to make money. If you can't make money, get out of my office. Yeah. That's one. The second, what do I think of social media? Well, as a consumer, I mean, yeah, I can get lost on TikTok or Reddit but it's the world's most fun time waster. But these days, and I work with people who are 30-something smart, these days, it's amazing because you have your niche people, you have your book talkers. There's a great value in spreading the word on social media. I really believe that. And do I give a shit? No, but yes. You know what I mean? It's you work within the system. We walk a fine line of art and commerce. That's a tough question, but I think you got to give a shit when you're out there marketing. Yeah. But do not give anything when you're writing. Yes. Do not write for the business. Write for the readers like they are in North Dakota.
So, Marshall, as we start to wrap it up, I always ask all my guests, and you are one of those, what is your best piece of writing advice? Now, you've given a ton of solid information this entire show. It's probably been a masterclass for me. I've learned a lot from your writing. I've learned a lot from just hanging out with you. But I know that everybody has a little bit of a last-minute credo by which they live, and I'd love to know what yours is for my aspiring authors.
Basically, it's never, never, never give up. Richard Bach, who not everybody's heard of, but he wrote a bunch of books, and then he wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And it was a book about a seagull who was looking to find himself, his values, and had pictures of birds. And it was practically spiritual. And that turned out to be a bestseller over the course of 2 different years.
Yeah.
And he said, a professional writer is an amateur who didn't quit. That is it. But it's about your relationship with, it's how you deal with it. If you're a real writer, and also, before I even thought about writing a book, I said to my friend who wanted to write a book, look, if you write 1 page a day for a full year, you'll have a book. And he called me a year. He goes, you're never going to believe this. I said, what? He said, I wrote 1 page a day, and I have this really cool 365-page book. And I go, holy shit, that works. Read a lot, write a lot, and don't think about marketing. Don't think about publishing. Don't think about bestsellers and being on podcasts with adorable hosts like David Temple. Stuff like that. I mean, it's like, oh, we should teach a class together because we'd have so much fun.
We would, wouldn't we? Well, folks, I want you to do me a favor. And by the way, Marshall, you have won the award. You won the award for the best unique website address, and that is carpkills.com. Not marshallkarp.com, but carpkills.com. So, folks, you want to learn more? Go there. There's a gaggle of books. You can snag them all at your leisure. And boy, has this been fun or what?
It's a lot better than I expected. You know,
what does that mean, mister?
Well, it means that you and I were just set up on a blind date.
Yeah.
And many years ago, I was set up on a blind date.
Yeah.
And I married her.
And you married her. Sweet.
It's the essence of chemistry. By the way, you've done something. Somehow, through you, I feel connected to your audience. You make me feel your audience because you know what they want. I mean, you're really good at this stuff, aren't you?
I don't know. I thank you. You're very, very kind. You're very kind, and I appreciate that. I'm humbled by that, and I'm honored to have you on the show. But I just reflect what I like. That's all I do. If I like a book, you are flat out going to know it. If I don't like a book, you may not know it. I just ask questions that I want to know about. Here's the thing. I started in radio when I was 16 years old, and I had somebody somewhere say to me, and I've lived by this. Now, David, don't get your head full of all this, that, and the other. When you go to get on the microphone, you crack that mic for the first time, imagine one person. Think of one person, not this audience. And so I always thought of my mom, because my mom was the only person going to listen to my show. And so I thought that way from then on. And for 25 plus years, that's kind of how I did it. So I just talked to the audience like it's just you and me. I don't sit there and go, well, I'm going to pontificate to my vast audience. So that's all. I'm a geek and I have fun. I like what I do. There you go. That's the simple of it.
You're my favorite PK.
Praise the Lord.
Do they know what that means? Yeah, probably by now. Yeah.
They do by now. After 4 years, and by the way, I got a nonfiction book coming out about my prostate cancer journey. That's going to hopefully come out maybe this year. And then my second nonfiction is going to be something about the world of living inside PK, living inside the world of being a preacher's kid. Because it's a lot of people go, dude, I don't give a shit. I'm like, well, there's going to be a lot of people who probably do because they're gonna live in that space of like, what's that like? Or better yet, hey, I lived in that world too, and I had all this guilt and all this pent up emotion, and I'm like, hey, let it go.
I have a nonfiction book in my head, but I don't have, which is I threw everything away at the age of 39. I was top of the food chain in advertising with money and stock, and but the punishment for being a good writer was to promote me and they wouldn't let me write. I gave it all up to follow my dream. And I'm a huge believer in, like, when you look in the mirror and say, is this all there is? Go for what's more. And I really have, I really do want to write it. They want me to write more fiction. But so, yes, write those books, especially the prostate cancer thing. There's a niche audience who can use your help, use your experience.
Anyway, just to put that button on it again, Thank you so much. I know this, your time is valuable. If people are still listening by now, your time is valuable. So thank you for listening. But dude, this has been such a joy.
David, it has been a joy. It has been, it's a dream come true. No, it's fun. I cannot believe that there is anyone on the planet that will watch this podcast for longer than my movie.
Yeah, we're clocking 92 minutes. Yeah, how about that, peoples?
Oh, well, mine was 97 with the credits. So roll credits.
Okay. Mr. Karp, I presume?
Oh my God. The accent. All right. Actual recording is higher quality. Actual guest is lower quality, but that's another thing. Do we really need an audience? Because this is really good for me, what we're doing right now.
Really? What do you mean, do we need an audience? Of course we need an audience.
A grown man telling me I'm cool. Are you going to use this video? Because I actually... Oh, okay.
Oh, hell yeah. Wherever you're comfortable.
Oh, no. I'm comfortable in Barbados. So, that ceiling fan, is that in your way?
No. Hang on a second. I've got my producer's in my ear. Yeah, John, can you go over and remove that ceiling fan? It's annoying as shit. Okay, he'll be right over.
This just clarified. I usually ask people if profanity is encouraged or discouraged. You don't have a 7-second delay?
No, how about whatever the fuck you want to say?
Hey,
I just thought I'd come out of the gate with something big. Now, I don't generally, every once in a while, a little bit of razzmatazz doesn't bother me. I don't go around, we're not sailors here, but
Yeah, right.
All right, what happened to your...
Well, wait, what the fuck? Tell me about yourself, David, because I don't know enough. I just came off of a Christian radio program. It was great, but you need to get in the headset. Bless your fucking heart.
Oh my God, best line of the day. Now, I'm from the South, so when you want to insult somebody to their face and make them feel okay, you go, well, bless your heart. But when you say bless your fucking heart, you're onto something. How much fun was that? Okay, folks, I'm going to make this very short and sweet. Join me next Thursday as another Thriller Thursday presents another one of the biggest names in the business, The Real Books by author Ryan Stack. Guess what? We've got a special guest appearance that's going to make a little trifecta with Miss Birdie Bell. As you'll remember, Ted Bell, only one of my favorite authors, was on the show twice before. Sadly, he has passed. Gladly, Ryan Stack has taken his place in the form of carrying on the Alex Hawke series. So make plans to attend next Thursday, the 20th, right here on the Thriller Zone. I'll see you next time.
Your #1 podcast for stories that thrill. The Thrill